Kannappa offered meat to Lord Shiva to eat, and Lord Shiva accepted it. And some people might say it's sacrilege, but no, that was what Kannappa was eating. And what was good for him, he thought deer meat or boar meat was the most best delicacy which he loved.
Right.
And he offered that to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva took it. Earlier back in the day, imagine in 2nd century, it was only a certain sector which they believed that only we can worship God. You're a Shudra, you're not clean, you're not supposed. All that is secondary.
Right.
For God, we are all the same. And that was the underlying message which I loved it. God is everywhere. My wife is a Christian, okay? And I'm a hardcore Hindu. I'm a Hindutva. Nobody would probably, come out and say I'm a hardcore Hindutva. I am. But at the same time, my wife is a Christian. She reads the Bible and she always puts the Bible under my head in the bed, in the night because she believes, the devil in me will leave, but hardly she knows I'm not going to leave that easy. When I was a kid, when I was studying, I learned more about, the Mughal eras.
Yeah.
I've learned more about to their credit, I've learned more about Aurangzeb. I haven't learned much about the Cholas and Pandavas. See, one great thing about the Tamil culture is that they hold on to the culture to their dear life. That is something the entire country should hold on to. Being a Hindu or being a Muslim or being a Christian, my freedom should not interfere with your freedom. As long as we respect each other, that's what every religion tells. My own father, who gave birth to me, he said, towards the end, I didn't see you, Vishnu, I just saw Kannappa. And I think that is the greatest compliment for an actor to get it.
Hello everyone, I'm here for Galatta Plus and I'm here with Vishnu Manchu and he's going to tell us where we are, which city we are in, which village we are in and many other details about the film that he's planned in 5 languages, that is Kannappa. So over to you. Where are we?
So thank you for coming all this way. As you know, we are making a historical Kannappa. A lot of people know our history, but my journey for this film is owning our history. Right now, we are at a village called Utkur, which earlier was called Udumur, but over usage, how names keep changing.
Right.
It's called Utkur today, and this is the birthplace of Kannappa Nayanar, the character which I'm playing in the movie Kannappa.
Right.
So many people, it kind of irks me when people say that, oh, now you're making a mythological film. It's not a mythological film, it's a historical film. Yes, I did take some liberties while writing the script, what could have been, because it's not recorded in history. So I took the liberty of making that. But when you look at Kannappa, the story is about an atheist who became God's greatest devotee.
Yeah.
Okay, in such a way that when God tests him, he unwaveringly and unconditionally, his love was so much to Lord Shiva that he didn't think twice to take his eye out and give it to Lord Shiva during the test. So this is a story popularly known to all, but not many of them know whether Kannappa was a real character. Yes, in the Sri Kalahasti temple, which is also called the Vayulinga, which is the house of the Vayulinga, in the Sri Kalahasti, you do have a statue of Kannappa because the whole incident and the episode happened there. And that's the only temple in the world where the devotee is on top of a mountain and the Lord is below the devotee. And that was a wish which was granted to Kannappa. And that is what Lord Shiva wished for. It is not what Kannappa wished for. But not many of them know that Kannappa belonged to the Boya tribe and this is his birthplace. I thought it is right to come offer my prayers here to Lord Shiva temple here and also to Kannappa to take his blessings, that if I had done anything wrong in the narration of the story, please forgive me, but this is my chance of telling his story to the world.
Right.
And I want his blessings for the success of the movie.
Yeah, so what you see behind us is the statue of the Kannappa that Vishnu Manchu was just talking about. And to the legend as it goes, he offered his eyes to
Yes.
Lord Shiva. Can you
Yes.
just explain that a bit?
See, he was an atheist. Why he was an atheist is not popularly known. But from being an atheist, he became Lord's greatest devotee. And during that journey, I would say that something triggered in him that he became a Lord's greatest devotee. And when he became so in love with him unconditionally, there are 2 versions of the story. One, God tested him. 2, God cried for him. So there are two versions. It's about what version we want to take, but what is the version we would like to tell is what it is. And then when Lord Shiva's linga started bleeding, the place where the eye is, when it started to bleed, that's when he was like, this is impossible. Okay, he was an uneducated man. He was a tribe, and his love, devotion, everything was raw. And the only thing he knew was your eye is bleeding, and he was so innocent. His eye was bleeding, and he was like, okay, you know what? I'll give my eye for you. Maybe the bleeding will stop. And he takes the eye out and gives it to Lord Shiva. And now the other eye starts bleeding. And he'll be like, okay, you know what? I'll give you my other eye also. That is the iconic pose of Kannappa, where he takes his leg and puts it on the Shivalinga where the eye is bleeding. With the reason that once if the my second eye comes out, I wouldn't know where to place it. So let me put my leg as a marker. So he puts the leg as a marker and takes his eye out and puts it. And that's when Lord Shiva appears and gives him moksha.
Lovely. Now, this is in a village, and this is a very modest temple. As you can see, this is a modest village. What made you say, I want to take this small story and reimagine it in an epic way? I don't mean the characters are small, but it's a story that took place in a village. So, and you're shooting in New Zealand. There's a scale and scope to the film. What made you say, I want to make this transition? Because you can take liberties with this. That's the whole point of storytelling. What made Vishnu Manchu say, this is how I see the Kannappa story?
See, what he was and what, before he became a devotee, and what triggered him to be an atheist is something, no, it's not documented anywhere. So that episode, I took the liberty of him, taking, so I very strongly believe the story took place in the 2nd and 3rd century during the Chola times. And how was our country at that time? Beautiful greenery. Even now, if you turn around and see, there is greenery, but on the way while coming here, you see a lot of mining happening and you see a lot of pollution and everything. So we human beings made sure we destroyed our nature, the beauty of nature. We talk about protecting it, we talk about praying to the Panchabhutas, but we don't actually practice that. So for me, when I decided to tell the story, I said, okay, this is a story. I would like the audience to feel they are in 2nd century. The location should be like, wow. And I believe that New Zealand is the last painting intact which God has painted. And I wanted to go shoot there and show them this was what even our country would have been during the 2nd century. Now, leaving that aside, this is a story which is very close to my heart, which shows that rituals, traditions, all these do not matter. They do not really matter to God to take you really close to Him. Your unwavering love, your unconditional love, and your pure heart is enough for you to communicate with God. You don't need mediators. And for God, we are all His kids.
Yeah.
For Him, it doesn't matter whether. And Kannappa offered meat to Lord Shiva to eat, and Lord Shiva accepted it. And some people might say it's sacrilege, but no, that was what Kannappa was eating. And what was good for him, he thought deer meat or boar meat was the best delicacy which he loved.
Right.
And he offered that to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva took it. And how can you say that is wrong? So the underlining, thing of it is there's no caste, there's no religion, there's no creed. So he was a tribe who was taking it because earlier back in the day, imagine in 2nd century, it was only a certain sector which they believed that only we can worship God. You're a Shudra, you're not clean, you're not supposed, all that is secondary.
Right.
For God, we are all the same. And that was the underlying message which I loved it. And I wanted to portray it. Irrespective of who you are,
Sure.
You might be an atheist, whatever it is, but once you accept your God into your heart, everything is pure.
You said something very interesting. You said the story is very close to you. What is your idea of bhakti or devotion? Because everybody has different ways of, whether you want to call it God, universe, whatever it is, everybody has a different way of, aligning themselves with the supreme power. What is your, if you don't mind answering this question?
See, what I follow would be a little radical to what people might generally follow. I go to temples, but I believe when I go to a certain temple, for example, we have a university, Mohan Babu University in Tirupati. For me, if I want, I can go every day to Lord Balaji's temple and take a darshan there. But it's not that easy. I believe that it's the calling of Lord Balaji should give you permission to say, okay, fine. You want to come? Come now. So the thought, the process, everything is in the Lord's hand. Second thing is that I don't believe that only if you go to the temple, God is there. God is present everywhere. I communicate to God in my heart when I wake up, when I eat, when I shower, when I'm with my kids, when I'm with my wife. I believe God is everywhere. My wife is a Christian, okay, and I'm a hardcore Hindu. I'm a Hindutva. Nobody would probably, come out and say I'm a hardcore Hindutva. I am, but at the same time, my wife is a Christian. She reads the Bible, and she always puts the Bible under my head in the bed, in the night because she believes, the devil in me will leave, But hardly she knows I'm not going to leave that easy. So jokes apart, God is present everywhere, and you want to talk to God, you communicate in your heart, and it'll receive. He will reach it. It isn't necessary that you need to go. You could go there for your manashanti, for you to feel okay. I mean, the energy at certain temples are impeccable. Yeah. See, I took up the yatra for all the 12 Jyotirlingas. What I was before I started Kannappa and what I am today is a huge change in my own personality. There is so much positivity I went along these 5 Jyotirlinga temples that I'm at bliss. Earlier, yes, I do get angry, I do get irritated, but all that is very, very short-lived for me right now. For me, it's like, it's all Shivalila. It's all Shivamaya. It's all his divine blessings is what very strongly in my head I'm thinking of.
Now, the story you said that, very little is known about the early part of Kannappa, right? So, different people, Krishnam Raju has done a version of the story, Dr. Rajkumar famously has done two versions of the story. So, did you refer to those earlier films?
Yes. See, but even in those movies, when you look at it, predominantly not many people know, but Kannappa Nayanar was shot in 1938, the first time in Tamil.
In Tamil, yeah.
But it was a silent film. Unfortunately, we do not have the footage. Then in 1953, Arangetram of the Kannada Kathiravan, the legendary Dr. Rajkumar sir, he made the movie. He made it called Bedar Kannappa in Kannada and Srikalasya Mahatyam in Telugu. Yeah. It was parallelly shot, and that was his only film which was a non-Kannada film. In the same year, the movie was made as Shiva Bhakt in Hindi. Now, after that, in 1976, the movie was made in Telugu by Mr. Krishnam Raju, by legendary directors Sri Bapu and Ramana sir. And Bedar Kannappa, Mr. Rajkumar's story was made in Telugu, and that they made a few tweaks. It was always made about 25 years later, so they made a few tweaks. And then later, in 1986, Shivamichina Kannappa, which Shivarajkumar sir acted as Kannappa, Rajkumar sir acted as Lord Shiva. Mr. Punit Rajkumar also acted as a child version, but in all these versions, the last is intact. God tested him, he gave his eyes. What was he before? And what was Kannappa's struggle, story, everything was all fiction. Everybody made their own version. That's the same liberty I took.
Right.
I wanted him to be an atheist. But there is a connection between Kannappa and Lord Shiva. What is that connection is something which is in those movies. But in these movies, in this movie, it will be a lesson to this generation. See, I believe that almost 50 years later, I'm telling the story of Kannappa to this generation of audience. And I think it's with Lord Shiva's permission and his blessing, he's given me the opportunity to tell the story now.
Why do you think it's important to this generation?
Again, somewhere down the line, we try to take in the Western culture. We haven't really proudly worn our culture on our sleeve. Okay. Well, what I say might not actually likable by many, what I'm going to tell now, but I got to tell what I got to tell. When I was a kid, when I was studying, I learned more about, the Mughal eras.
Yeah.
I've learned more about to their credit, I've learned more about Aurangzeb. I haven't learned much about the Cholas and Pandavas. See, one great thing about the Tamil culture is that they hold on to the culture to their dear life. That is something the entire country should hold on to. And even in, I speak with authority, even for Tamilians to an extent, because I was born and raised in Chennai. For this generation, the people gone out of across the country, people who have left the country and gone and doing jobs outside, they are coming back to the roots and trying to hold to the roots very strongly. But the people within India are not that passionate about it. But now slowly, they are being passionate. They are trying to learn about it. There had been a systematic approach, which I think I might be wrong. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But there's been a systematic approach to whitewash what we have, what we are, who we are, probably because of the colonization of us, and then later on, our textbooks being whitewashed. But now we are trying to find back our roots, and it's important for the parents and my generation to teach the next generation what it is about. It's proud to say you're a Hindu. There's nothing wrong in that, Until a few years ago, you will be like, no, the others might, the other minorities might feel bad. There's nothing wrong in proudly saying, I'm a Hindu, Hara Hara Mahadev. There's nothing wrong in saying that. You should be proud. And, there could have been a lot of reasons, but today that we are coming up, I'm not just talking about just the Mughal invaders or anybody. Look at the case of what happened when Alexander came into the country. Okay. Now, why don't we hear the exploits of Alexander, but we don't hear how many people actually fought against him and stood guard. And yes, we hear about one king, the Battle of Panipat or anything of that sort. But how is it that that our strategies actually made him reverse back? Okay, it made, the history is so whitewashed for the Westerners and with an agenda that they say that Alexander was very proud when the king, forgive me, I lost the name of the king.
Porus.
No. Our Indian king
Indian.
Who fought against Alexander.
Okay.
And when he was, about to be executed and he was brought in front of Alexander the Great, he asked him to bend down, but he stood haughtily and said, I'll not bend my head down. So it is said that Alexander was like, I'm proud of you, I'll give your kingdom back.
I think it was Porus, Paurava. I think so.
I'm not really, you have to forgive me, I'm not really.
The same thing here.
So they say Alexander was generous enough to leave. But the actual story is we inflicted such a huge, battle wounds for the king that he couldn't come forward. So the resistance of the Indian king was so much. That is not something we hear about.
Right.
Okay, it's as if Danam Gurtitang, I'm donating it to you, take it and go even though I won. So that's the story we hear. That's not right. So I think it's up to this generation to own their history. And yes, I'm making a commercial film. I'm not making a documentary. But in a commercial format, I would love to stay true to my roots and tell them the story of the greatest devotee of Lord Shiva.
So you mentioned that we should be proud to own the fact that we are Hindu. And you also earlier said that I'm a hardcore Hindu. What is the difference between Hindu and Hindutva?
It's nothing. It's the way you feel about it, the way you project yourself about it. See, somewhere they're saying I'm I'm a hardcore Hindutva. Suddenly, all of a sudden, you're saying you're a radical.
Yeah,
that's wrong. That's wrong. Why are you saying so? Being is saying that I follow. I'm a Muslim. So does that sound that I'm a radical? No, right? So why do you have to say that I'm a Hindu? I'm a hardcore Hindutva. I'm a Hindu. Why should it sound radical? It shouldn't. So it's only how certain people are trying to project it. At the same time, being a Hindu or being a Muslim or being a Christian, my freedom should not interfere with your freedom. As long as we respect each other, that's what every religion tells. Respect each other. That's all it is. It's a way of life. Every religion is a way of life. If you go in depth to every religion, let it be the Bible, let it be the Puranas, let it be the Quran, everything believes in peace and harmony. Somewhere down the line, our politicians or rulers or kings, they used it to suppress people. But that's a longer debate. But as of now, India is a great example how secular people, everybody can stay together. And we are a great living proof of it.
As an actor, of course, you're doing other jobs on this movie. You've co-written bits of it.
I've written the script and the screenplay of the movie.
You've not co-written. You've written it.
I've written the script.
Entirely. Forgive me. Now, but as an actor, this is very different from the roles you have played so far. Some of the action comedies or like D and other movies that made you popular. What was it that you had to do to say, okay, this is how I'm going to be truest in my representation of this character?
See, it's a very interesting question. When I started writing it and I started, when I got the green signal, we are going ahead with the movie, all of a sudden it was only Kannappa I could think of. There was nothing else. Kannappa would do this, Kannappa would do that. So, in a way, when I look back, I'm like, yeah, the best compliment I got was from my father and some of the veteran industry producers like Mr. Rockland Venkatesh and everyone. They looked at the movie and said, I didn't see you, man. We just saw Kannappa. My father, my own father, who gave birth to me, he said, towards the end, I didn't see you, Vishnu. I just saw Kannappa. And I think that is the greatest compliment for an actor to get it. And my director, Mr. Mukesh Kumar Singh, he helped me. I was very, very confident how to pull off the character once he became a devotee. I don't know why, it just triggered in my mind. I was like, I'm going to nail this. But for me, the challenge was, what was he when he was an atheist? I didn't want to do action, comedies, comical body language, nothing, because I believe he's a warrior and he's got a backstory about it, why he's a warrior. When you watch the movie, you'll understand. Even in the earlier movies, there is, but many people don't realize that. So for me, my director was the one who cracked the code. And just before going to shoot, he spent 3 minutes with me and he said, this is what I think Kannappa is. You wrote it, you figure it out, but this is what I think he should be.
Can you say that? Is it a spoiler?
It's not a spoiler. For me, one thing he said that in your mind, yes, you got the devotee. I'm not going to touch the devotee because I know you'll nail it. I went and reached out to him saying that I'm stuck. How do I crack the code? He said, Kannappa should be a tiger,
Nice.
not a lion. A lion hunts, laces, and the lioness is good. But a tiger, a tiger is a tiger. Be a tiger. That's what Kannappa is. And if you think you can sink to that character, go ahead. And everything fell in place for me with that one sentence.
Lovely. You have Akshay Kumar, you have Mohanlal, you have
Prabhas.
Prabhas, yes. I forgot the big star. So,
And Mr. Sarath Kumar, father,
yeah,
everybody are there.
yeah. So when you have cameos in a movie and they're played by very, very big stars and actors, sometimes it has the distracting effect of people noticing the actors more than the characters that they play. How have you tried to kind of bring that into the story?
See, if a story is told very well, I think you will not see the actors, but you'll see the characters. And I've been fortunate enough for the ensemble of the actors I have, and they are not just a minute or 2 minutes. Almost everybody are 15 minutes and more in the movie.
Okay.
Okay, one character is almost 30 minutes.
Oh,
Okay.
so that's not a cameo.
Yeah, that's not a cameo.
Yeah.
So because I have so many people in the movie, people think, oh, it's going to be a cameo, it's going to be a cameo. None of these actors don't have anything less than 15 minutes. And for me, when you're going to watch the movie, the first minute will excite you. Oh, that's him. Okay, that's Akshay Kumar as Lord Shiva. Oh, that's Prabhas as Rudra. The first minute or minute 30 seconds, you might feel excited as a fan or as a film enthusiast. But once you get into the movie, you'll forget all that.
I read that during the shooting in New Zealand, you were injured when a drone kind of crashed into you. Did that shake you a bit in terms of the scale of what you're attempting?
See, people around me were shaken a lot because a few inches up, it would have cut my neck. And the DP was shaken very badly. It was a very freak accident. It was mostly a human error because, the latest drone, what they got was AI controlled. So it had to have a clear satellite connect between that. And so there was a machine which was connecting it to the satellite. And when we were all rehearsing and everything, my concentration was on the other guy I was doing the action sequence with. Because he's almost 7 feet tall and he looks like a bear. And the weapon he was trying to hit me with was 17 kgs. And even though he's big and he weighs about 130 kgs, swinging something 17 kgs of uneven weight is difficult for him. So just before that, Mr. Sarath Kumar called me and said, hey, Vishnu, be careful, that guy is not having the proper timing. So I went up to her, I was like, no, I'll calculate. So my concentration was here. While I was preparing, one of the background actors, they were rushing to come to the shot, they moved the satellite connect.
Okay.
So this thing which was supposed to come and move between us, it lost the thing. So the DP just looked at it and he flipped it. And it straight, instead of curving around me, it came and crashed into me. And I think we'll release the footage. I was so angry with myself that I failed to recognize, because I'm a stuntman and I'm a stunt choreographer. And I failed to realize that, there's a possibility of this because I was concentrating on this thing. I started yelling at myself and I walked away. But everybody in the shoot was shaken because, it went deep and all the stuff. I said, all fine, all fine. Went home. I just took a minute to say that, what a fool you've been. It was your mistake, not anybody's mistake. And I called up everybody and said, we're going back to shoot normal. Next morning, 7 o'clock is back on shoot. Stitches done, everything. And I said, yeah, we'll shoot. There's nothing.
There are some actors who have played roles in such movies. They say that it was almost like they were operated by a divine power or something that they felt in them that they did not feel when they were acting in social movies or other kinds of films. Did any such thing happen with you?
To be honest, even now, me standing in front of Kannappa's, idol and talking about the movie, and when I think back, people believed in the characters I wrote in such a big span. And I was able to convince some of the biggest actors of my generation and some of the superstars to come and act in the movie.
And they did so for free, some of them.
Yeah, Prabhas and Mr. Mohanlal.
Yeah.
They were gracious enough not to take a penny. And even when I was offering, they were like, oh, you say you've become big enough to offer us money now. And it was only out of the respect and love they had towards my father. I wish I could take the credit for it. But it was only out of the respect and love they had towards my father, Mr. Mohan Babu, that they accepted to do it. And now when I look back, it's all Shiva Leela. This whole thing, the entire Kannappa happening, and it's going across the country, and we are looking at having a large release overseas. And I never imagined that a movie of mine, at this time, I always wished for it. But it's too surreal to believe that a movie of mine is releasing all over the world. And outside India, it's releasing almost in 5,000 screens. It's unbelievable for me. Okay, and I believe it's all the divine intervention and all the magic of Lord Shiva. And it's not, I don't take credit for this.
Wonderful. I wish you all the success in this movie.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing the story for the new generation, because I grew up with Amar Chitra Kathas, right?
Me too.
And that taught me a lot about it's whether you believe or not, it's a different thing, but it's important to know.
Yes.
To know that such a thing is there in our scriptures, or such a thing has been recorded in a temple pillar, or such a temple exists, or that shrine exists there, and we are standing right in front of a statue of Kannappa because of your movie. Otherwise, I may have never visited this place, right? So I think your movies like this can perform the equivalent of an Amar Chitra Katha for a new generation.
I hope
and
so.
in a much more visual way, because we grew up reading. Today's kids don't read. So maybe
That's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. But thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
It is lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.